Hey everyone, this is Greg, your host of Goddamn Gamecube. Thank you for tuning in to Season 2. All episodes in this season were conducted virtually over the internet because of the coronavirus pandemic, so please excuse any audio glitches or oddities you may hear during these episodes. Thank you and enjoy. Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of Goddamn Gamecube, the best goddamn video game podcast there is. Greg and Beppy are your hosts today, and we are continuing with our Mass Effect retrospective, today with Mass Effect 2. We've got our friend Nick Monahan with us again today. Hello, Nick.
Hello, everyone.
And let's kick it over to Beppy and let's get this started. Go ahead, sir.
Yeah, so we are discussing Mass Effect 2. Came out, I think, 2.5 years after the first game. The hype for me was pretty significant because I remember the teaser trailer was a Geth wearing a piece of Commander Shepard's armor. So I had no idea what to make of that. That was pretty much the only thing I saw up until it came out. And it really, I mean, it's I think that the general consensus of this episode, to sort of put it in a preamble here, is that there are some improvements, some drawbacks in general, some trade-offs, I guess, in general. I was immediately sort of super impressed by the presentation, how smooth and tight everything was. And it's a very different feel from the first game. It's a lot sleeker. It's probably like the sexiest one. It's like, very, the first one has a very kind of contemplative, atmospheric, there's a lot of wonder to it. And the second one is kind of, we know what we're doing. We're getting down into the gritty, the more morally checkered environs of this universe. And I don't know do you guys have any initial impressions you'd like to share?
Sure. I agree with you. I'm glad you brought that up about the visuals, the aesthetic upgrade. Like when you look at Mass Effect 1 versus Mass Effect 2, I got most of the way through a replay recently to prepare for this, and that's what jumped out to me right away. Is that right. Whether it was through this was an Xbox 360 game, and so was the first one, but there was some jump in fidelity for this game which came out to me right away. And we'll talk about gameplay stuff, it being a smoother experience. But I agree really with your whole intro. There's some positives to this game in terms of gameplay. There are some drawbacks, but we'll get into all the details, and I'll kick it to Nick. Go ahead.
I think I mostly agree. I think the presentation here is a lot more, I don't want to say sure of itself necessarily, but it's like they, like you said, they want to get more into like the dark and gritty undertones of this series. You were spending a lot more time in, Citadel controlled space, and they make a point of this game. You're going a lot more into the Terminus systems, which is, not necessarily as regulated by the Citadel Council. A little bit of a Wild West of space. Yeah, I mean, and kind of your secondary hub in this is a place called Omega, which is a space station hollowed out of an asteroid, run by like crime lords and stuff.
And it looks exactly like High Charity from Halo.
Yes, it does. And you're dealing with a lot of mercenaries and criminal types. Your squad is greatly expanded, and the cast of characters is a lot more eclectic. And varied in terms of like their pasts and their backgrounds and what they are and who they are. And it really expands the world and lore of the game in I think almost entirely positive ways, and really is like everything that I think a second entry in a series like this should be. It really cements the Mass Effect universe as like a really fucking cool place.
It's cool. It's really cool in that it's what I would describe it as, I mean, not necessarily the Empire Strikes Back, maybe more of like a Temple of Doom kind of thing, where it just kind of changes gears. It's a lot more intimate, kind of, I think, on purpose. I guess I should kind of set up the whole premise of the game, which is fairly straightforward. Is that the beginning of this game is the Normandy being destroyed, the ship that you have control over the entire first game, completely obliterated. It's a fantastic sequence. really cinematic. Half of your ship is kind of jettisoned out into space, and Commander Shepard dies, air quotes there, because he or she is resurrected by Cerberus, a group from the first game that was kind of in the background. They're a very pro-human kind of organization, and they are recruiting Shepard for their own ends. And so they essentially just give you your life back with a huge kind of handcuff that you have to work with this extremist organization. And it's incredible because it no matter what, I mean, if you've been paying attention, you are uncomfortable with working with these people initially, but you can't deny like the improvements. It's like the private sector kind of like lifestyle. It's they give you a new Normandy. It's way bigger. It's more luxurious. It's got all these different quarters, and you know your crew is twice the size of what it was. So you kind of like you get used to it a little bit. And I thought it was a fascinating way to kind of play with your expectations, because essentially what you're doing is your human colonists are being abducted mysteriously. It's one of those plot lines, and you have to kind of put together your team, your Magnificent Seven or 12 in this case, to deal with them and find out who's kidnapping them. It turns out to be this insect alien race called the Collectors, and it's essentially most of the game by design is looking for these people. And if you're taking the game seriously enough, you're going to also do their loyalty missions, which are kind of, you're helping them with their something that's unresolved from their past, and is going to, once it's resolved, they'll be able to focus on the mission. And that in turn governs how this final suicide mission is going to unfold. And so in essence, it's sort of a microcosm of the Mass Effect experience, where you're watching your choices and your priorities play out in real time. And I thought that was a fascinating way. It's kind of a little bit of a Majora's Mask, where it's like the very nature of the structure of this game is completely different. And so I think this is maybe my least favorite story premise, just because of how the payoff is kind of shitty. I mean, I really enjoy the ride, and I think it's such a smooth experience, and I really kind of am into the RPGs that you can kind of make a mental checklist of the things you've done, and like your completion, and watching your upgrades and everything like that, and I'm quite fond of it in general. I don't know. Do you guys have like kind of like a thumbs up or thumbs down in general about this game?
That's a great question. Upon replay, I'm not like, I always get digged for this. I'm not saying this game is like bad or that I hate it. It's interesting. When I replayed Mass Effect 1 recently, and I think I liked it a little bit more than the first time I played it. When I replayed this, I actually liked it a little bit less than what I remember.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And then what bothered me a little bit about this game was not, you kind of brought up some stuff about the plot and the payoff. The whole like how the plot is set up in the beginning of the game just doesn't resonate with me that much. Like I understand the whole like you working with Cerberus because they brought you back to life, and like it makes sense, but I don't really love the you died and are back to life sort of plot line. I don't like it that much. It didn't work for me. And the first like 50% of the game, I feel like I'm just recruiting my team and doing loyalty missions, and the Elusive Man is just like, go recruit your team. We're working on stuff. You know what I mean? We're working on it. Like, go do other stuff.
Shepard.
Yeah, exactly. And it's just, I don't know what it was. The first half of this game just like didn't really land for me, and it's just these quote unquote main missions about finding your allies kind of felt like side missions. Does that make sense? Does anybody else feel that, or is that just me?
I can see what you're saying, but we were just talking about this before we started recording, and I like how character driven this game is, even more so than the first one. And it almost feels like, you ever watch like any television, any like American television show specifically that has a lot of like filler episodes and stuff, or like you watch something like The X-Files, and every so often there's an episode that is about the main plot, but most of the time it's like a monster of the week thing, and those are usually the more compelling episodes because it's like, what did they come up with this week?
Right.
Case of the week, I guess I should say.
A little bit of that in this game for sure.
And well, so the thing is, the Mass Effect universe is so interesting, and they introduce so many new races in this, and so many new places and concepts for this universe that, like, every time you do a mission for a new character, it's exciting about like, okay, where am I going to go? Who is this person going to be? And, you know, what is going to be the scenario surrounding their recruitment? A couple of them, the DLC characters, Kasumi and Zaid, they don't have recruitment missions, but they have like missions. They have loyalty missions that are really cool. At least, especially Kasumi's, I think, because it's a little heist. You know, the rest of them all have these involved, like, highly story-driven missions, and the story of the game is almost the story of these people. And the failure of the main plot to be engaging, I think, is just the result of they didn't know how to have a credible threat that requires all these people without it not being the Reapers directly, because you already killed a Reaper and the rest of them are on their way, but they can't get here yet because that would be too soon. So it's like, okay, what do we have as a main threat here? And they decided to have it be the Collectors being manipulated by the Reapers behind the scenes and all this stuff. And it is a weak main plot, and I fully agree with that. But I think that the actual focus of this game being the characters and their side plots and learning all these new things about the universe is a good trade-off. That is the strongest part of this game, and it is very strong for me.
I think actually, like, this is kind of similar in what I was just saying about Cerberus, is that initially you're like, oh, I want like my old team back, but they're all like busy, they've moved on with their lives. So you're like, oh, I don't know who these people are, but I think like this is my favorite squad of characters out of the three for sure.
Yeah.
Well, four, but jeez,
don't worry about that.
So no, do you guys want to talk about any standout characters or moments with the characters?
Yeah, can I talk about one thing? Just because Is
it Kanye West?
No, I'm out. You guys can finish this.
No.
But he looks just like him. You know who I'm talking about, right? Jacob.
The first guy. Is Jack like really good or really bad as a character? Like, I can't really like tell.
Just kind of an edgelord, like kind of.
You know what I mean?
Okay.
Like,
all right. Can I give you my
go ahead
my short opinion on Jack? I hated her the first 2 times that I played this game, until I realized that if you actually dig deep into her character and really talk to her and like do all this stuff, she's actually like a pretty good sort of representation of just like a tortured and like, you know, I shouldn't say representation, but like she's fairly well executed for what she's supposed to be. And if you're not willing to meet that halfway, I totally understand, because I didn't for the first 2 times that I played this game. But if you're willing to meet that type of character halfway and actually understand them, and like she like warms up to you quite a bit if you actually like
if you put the time in.
If you put the time in. And she's also a really powerful character, and she's one of the few characters that can do the bubble at the end too.
Oh yeah, that's right. The Final Fantasy Crystal Chronicles.
So it does pay off. And gameplay wise, I think she's a good character to have in your squad gameplay wise.
Yeah, for sure. I think the strength of her character is if you do her loyalty mission, it's kind of discovering she's a human test subject who they have integrated all these advanced biotics, the telekinesis, basically the force of this game. And it's incredible because it's making it clear that the Mass Effect universe is somewhat like, it's not a utopia. It's very, this kind of neglect and this kind of abuse can still happen because she was abducted as a child, I believe. And so her loyalty mission is just going to that old base where she was experimented on and blowing it up.
Well, not only that, the entire program was built for her. She was deliberately separated from the other kids because she was the most promising subject. So they would literally do all the tests around her. And like she would like horribly injure and like kill the other test subjects.
Yeah.
Because she was just so powerful, and they would just torture her and beat her if she did bad. So
I think honestly, the when she appears briefly in Mass Effect 3, I think it makes it a nice little payoff for her character.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's because within like a breath, it's her and like with Morden Solis, the Solarian doctor. We didn't really talk about them in the last one, but they're kind of these short-lived. I think they only live to they're 40 or something like that, and they're kind of amphibian looking, and they're just kind of like the scientists, the scholars. There's some like skeevy bad guy ones here and there, but you're essentially, this guy he's one of my favorites. He's a musician. He sings a little bit of the show tune in the middle of the game.
Modern Major General, but it's Scientist Solarian.
Yes, yeah. It's very charming. And he's just a wonderful character because he's instrumental in the creation of the genophage that we talked about in the last one, the Krogan anti-virility disease, and he is sort of in a way trying to repent for it. You kind of help him realize that over the course of the game in the next one.
For most of it, he's actually very unapologetic.
Yes,
almost, because he's like, no, it had to be done. Like, Krogan were too powerful and all that stuff. And it takes a very long time, like till the end of his loyalty mission, when you meet his protege who's trying to continue the work and like do all this other stuff. And even then, he softens a little bit, but he like still believes that. Basically, he still believes that it was necessary, but he regrets his role in it. Almost, kind of, I think, is how it turns out. But I actually really respect that character for not flipping around, because something that I don't like about a lot of these games is that you're able to influence everybody 100% to like your view.
Yeah.
And that is not how that is not how beings in this case are.
Yeah.
At least not in all cases. So I like that a lot of the characters still retain their personalities and their beliefs to a point, but you can influence them a little bit and kind of crack them rather than
you can't
them.
It's within, I mean, it varies game to game, but I think it's like you can't really game these people either. Like you can't just like keep talking to somebody like over and over. At a certain point they're like, I got stuff to do.
I actually found that really funny. When I was sort of, I didn't want to miss any loyalty missions, and I kind of forgot how they were triggered, so I'd keep talking to them over and over again, like, dude, I'm working on something, you want to hit me later? I'm like, all right.
Well, that's where the infamous Garrus calibrations meme came from.
His arc is great in this game.
I love his was one of my favorite loyalty missions. Because when you the first time you play through it, you don't know that he's Archangel, so you get to him and it's just like, oh my god, it's Garrus!
It's your boy.
Yeah, he's become like a bounty hunter or a superhero of some kind, and
he's Space Batman.
All the mobs are teaming up to bring him down. It's so cool. Cool way to like reinvent old characters. There's a lot to talk about. He rejoins your squad after you help him out of that trouble. I mean, Thane, he's kind of another amphibious sort of reptile.
The
looks like a cold-blooded man, and he wears a nice suit, and he's an assassin who has a disease. He's dying, and he's trying to make peace with the world because he's kind of like a more spiritual assassin. And who else is there? Samara is she's an Asari Justicar, and they're just kind of like the intergalactic DEA agents or something, where they're just like they're just
like
patrolling.
Crusaders almost.
Yeah,
because they have that very strict code, and there's like you don't even know what it is, and they could just kill you even though you don't know what you did.
All the most dangerous people in the galaxy, and trying to kind of unite them under a common cause. I think it's really cool.
You know what ally I thought was like a little odd, and maybe you guys can expand on it for me a little? Grunt.
Yeah.
The Krogan. Like, I was doing that. I was replaying that mission recently, and because before I replayed this game, I didn't remember much about it in terms of the story. I remembered some gameplay stuff. And when I was going, blah, 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 I was going through this quest to recruit the Krogan, and I was like, oh, are you going to get, what was his name? Okier, the scientist?
Oh, yeah.
And no, you actually get guy. Grunt, the guy he was like working on or sort of implanting memories.
Tank-born.
Yeah.
He's the genetic creation. He's tank-born. He's not a...
right.
He's not like a live birth.
And can you guys expand on that for me? Like, how did you feel about that? Like, I was a little surprised, and then I found it interesting how the game gives you a choice to revive him or not. Is that something I actually don't know? Does that choice exist throughout the whole game? You don't have to. Is that right?
You don't have to. It's the same thing with Legion, the Geth.
Yeah.
You recruit later on, who is the aforementioned in the trailer. They show a Geth wearing Commander Shepard's armor piece. Presumably scavenged from when they were dead, and that character is awesome too. But you can completely just neglect to reactivate it, and that's cool. It's like if your character was like prejudiced, it's not like you just kind of lose out on that perspective because if your character was Ashley Williams. Well, exactly.
Yeah.
Oh man.
Grunt is interesting because he on the surface he's kind of like Jack in a way where it's like on the surface he's just kind of like, oh, he's just this confused, angry Krogan. But when you really think about it, it's like he's a confused, angry child who isn't a natural born Krogan. And his whole arc and his whole loyalty thing is you bring him to Chanka to Rex's tribe. And or clan,
or if you let Rex die, it's his brother, or not Reeve.
Yeah,
he's just like this boring asshole.
Yeah,
that's what you get for letting Rex die.
so you bring him to there, and the whole thing is that he has to go through his rite of passage and join a clan and become an actual Krogan, and so that's how you get a lot of insight.
Their planet is awesome.
That's one of the best missions in the game
because they that race nuked each other into oblivion, so it's just like a wasteland. It's awesome.
And you get to headbutt that priest that's mouthing off, and then
or
no, not the priest. He's like the priest laughs his ass off when you do it.
One of the other tribe leaders.
Yeah,
I like their dynamics a lot too. The way they, because with a race like that, you kind of have you run the risk of doing the Klingon thing where they're always at each other's throats. So I was glad that there was some civility. You could go to a settlement and just see what they do for fun and then shoot at monkeys and stuff.
Well, you can listen. There's two of them. There's two of the soldiers are talking and they're like, oh, the females brought the kids around the other day and one of them has my eyes or something or whatever, and it's oh, that's nice.
That's all they talk about because of the genophage, I guess.
Yeah, it's so important to them.
The locales, I think, in general, are very believable and lived in.
Yeah.
And it's another advantage of the improved engine, improved visuals is just how Omega especially, I think, is very. It feels like there's a bunch of shit happening behind the scenes that you're not really privy to.
Ilium too, the Asari Coruscant planet, basically.
Yes, because that planet also is it's on the surface it seems more pleasant than the other places you go, but there's a lot of very people getting sold into mercantile slavery and all these shitty insider trading people going on, and it's a fascinating kind of choice to just show that because the Asari are considered so perfect, but one of their main colonies is still warped in this Wild West kind of way.
Yeah.
Did you know? I want to briefly mention because the voice acting in this game is really formidable. Samara, who I was just talking about, the voice actor for Samara. She is actually Billie Eilish's mom.
Yes.
Oh my God, that's right, dude.
Isn't that crazy? Really weird.
That's wow. That's crazy.
It's not the most notable person in this game, but I thought that was worth bringing up.
You know what, dude? It's very notable for us discussing this in 2021.
For sure.
For sure.
Yeah, because at the time, nobody knew who that was.
Right?
Yeah.
How old was Billie Eilish in 2010?
Well, 10?
10?
Yeah, maybe
10,
not even.
11, 9.
Jesus
yeah,
Christ.
I think
we're old.
8. Yeah, something like that.
Did you? I didn't want to interrupt you if you had something to add to that.
Oh, I was just gonna say, like, I don't know if you guys want to rattle off some quick opinions on the other characters because there's a lot, but I think it's worth covering most of them.
Oh, for sure, because they're kind of the center of the game.
Yeah.
And in essence, it's also tied in with the voice acting, which I wanted to touch on because it's extremely strong across the board, and a lot of these people just really sell how fucking like messed up these characters are.
Right.
Yeah.
They're really kind of it's incredible how kind of unique their traumas are. Like they don't overdo it because they're all just kind of a different flavor. Like Jacob with his dad. That mission is awesome.
Kanye's dad.
Right? Yeah, when you go to that the ship that crashed and he's been brainwashing everybody with this fruit that's been growing on the planet. I was like, well, I couldn't believe it went. That was like dark.
Yeah, that mission's like, fucked up.
God. Oh my God.
I mean, it could have been so much worse, but just the implications of it are just fucked up.
Horrifying. And it makes Jacob a lot more interesting because he's kind of like the vanilla, like Caden Olenko kind of Stargate.
Yeah, fill in. Yeah.
I love Miranda. I mean, I can never say no to Yvonne Strahovski.
That's fair.
Right. She's she's a real femme fatale in this game.
Mm-hmm.
She's got her own bullshit with her sister, where you have to. That mission's like kind of ho hum, but in general, I find her a pretty successful character just because she was like genetically engineered to be perfect, and it kind of, in this galaxy it comes with its own, because her father kind of treats her like a trophy.
Yeah, just property.
Yeah, and it again, another character I think like Jack, that pays off a lot in 3 when you see how it kind of comes to a head. But it's interesting too. I don't think we talked about how some of the characters can get into fights, and it's like depending on how you play it, like that will govern their performance in the ending.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like it's kind of obvious, but it's also kind of not how to like not take sides and like make sure everybody is on the same page. Because I think she and Jack can get into a fight, and I think Tali and Legion, and maybe a couple of others.
Tali and Legion is the most interesting one by far.
I thought that was so cool because it's like you not only do you have to put all these people together, you have to expect that they're gonna, yeah, it's a weird situation, but it's kind of pushing you to take a side, one way or another. Tali is actually, we didn't even talk about that she's rejoins your squad as well, and it's like she has a kind of her own whole sub quest where you get to meet her, I guess her family, her extended family, and you visit her fleet. I thought that was a really cool part of the game.
That's my favorite loyalty mission.
It's awesome, right?
Is the trial where you have to play her defense, basically.
Yeah, because her father gets into some geth shit, and you have to kind of prove his innocence, so-called. Really cool mission for sure. I'm trying to. I just don't want to miss any other squad members. Zaid is amazing. He's like kind of like an '80s. Just like anti-hero pretty much, who's like his face has been blown off partially and it's been reconstructed, and he just like kind of refuses to die. And his loyalty mission is awesome, because it's one of those things where you can either he wants to get revenge on the guy who shot him and destroyed his face. And you can either essentially let him do that at the expense of several like innocent lives, or you can convince him to save the people or whatever and let his villain go. And it's cool because it's kind of you can actually let him die in that mission if you make him save the civilians or whatever, and you don't convince him to still join you. You can just let him like explode.
Yeah, something. You can leave him under a pile of rubble.
It's fucking crazy, like that they even consider that. Like, as I appreciate it as because then he's just kind of not in the rest of the series. And
he's the only character that can die in his recruitment mission except for Samara.
That's true. That's very true. That is really cool too. Her kind of with her daughter, who is the art Yakshi.
I don't know why you would choose Morinth over Samara, because that's just like it's a trap.
You gotta be into goth girls, I think.
Wait a minute. I don't want to get too far, but isn't there a mission failure, a really funny meme with Morinth, right?
Yeah.
So if you romance her after the suicide mission, you die and you get a critical mission failure.
Yeah, it's really funny.
It's something that can happen if the Asari only breed with each other, that they can they produce these offspring that have a genetic defect where whoever they breed with will die. And there are some that like get addicted to it and they just kill everybody that they.
Well, because it makes them more powerful. They gain all of like the mind energy from that person.
Right.
And so they become addicted to the power. And it's an incredible bit of Asari lore, because her other two daughters are at a monastery, as you find out later, where they're isolated by the Asari, where they're like, you can stay here and live out your life, or you can be executed.
Yeah.
Morinth was the one who escaped.
It's kind of a source of great shame for Samara.
Yeah.
And she's, her daughter is like, this is what you tried to keep me entrapped there and everything. And I mean, I guess maybe if you felt that Samara was too dogmatic in keeping her daughter there, maybe, because you can choose. It's the kill Jerry or kill Elaine Mass Effect.
But it's funny because you're doing this whole murder investigation up until that point, and then you have to lure Morinth out, and it's like you go through all this work, and then it's like, no, you know what? I think I'm actually going to kill the Justicar.
Well, it's pretty cool because that mission, depending on how good your speech is, your Paragon or Renegade, you can Morinth will try to entrap you on this like date that you're going on with her. And
let me quote our friend Noah here. Are you sure this isn't just a weird alien sex franchise?
If it was more graphic, maybe, but you don't really see anything here.
No.
But her eyes turn black. That's pretty scary. But that is, I think that's a cool thing, that your speech kind of governs how long you can resist her advances there, I guess.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think of the other great mission. Well, you mentioned Kasumi earlier, who's another DLC character, and she's kind of a thief.
She's my favorite DLC character.
She's really cool. She has a whole kind of submission where you, her husband, I believe, died, and there's a belonging of his that she's trying to get back.
It's right? Isn't that the whole premise? It's like a memory box. It's like
of all his like. Kim Kardashian's dad hologram stuff. And it's a great little mission, like a little submission where you have to kind of you don't even have any weapons at first. You just kind of gotta schmooze at a party.
Yeah. It's a heist. It's really cool.
Really, really cool. Good opportunity maybe to bring up the other very notable DLC. The Shadow Broker DLC is tremendous. It's a real kind of mini adventure. A lot of it was intended for the main game and it was cut. And it kind of reintroduces Liara to the story. She briefly becomes a squad member. It's a very lengthy DLC where you're pursuing this previously mentioned character called the Shadow Broker, who's just kind of this hidden away crime lord who is pulling the strings on everything. And essentially, you're just working with Liara to find him and uncover his true identity. And it's a pretty wild. Greg, you didn't play this one, right?
No, I did not.
But Nick did.
Oh, Liara's a stone cold badass in this one, and it's awesome.
It's pretty cool to see her character grow.
It's such a good storyline.
You wind up chasing him to his ship that flies above a lightning planet called Haagen-Dazs, I believe. And that's awesome when you're on top of the ship in the storm. It's a very the scale is very appreciated.
Yeah, well, to get inside, you have to blow off the lightning panels so the ship gets damaged or something.
Right, the lightning rods.
And then you can get inside, and then you're.
It's very well conceived. It's a really cool it's a very James Bond kind of sequence where you have to break into this ship and you fight him, and he's a bit. How did you feel about him being like a big monster guy?
I thought it was cool because most of the sentient races are like fairly not ho-hum, but like they're fairly like, okay, yeah, like I've seen something like this before. And then this guy, they're called the Yag, and they have this Triforce shaped like split mouth with
like a Venus flytrap kind of.
Yeah, they're fucking weird looking, and they're so cool. I think
it's pretty funny because I mean it's
the boss fight's kind of not great.
You have a boss fight with him. I feel like that would have been better served if it was like maybe the Shadow Broker was a guy and you had to fight his bodyguard or something like that. I don't know. I don't know how I would have done it.
I think it's normally I hate the phrase subvert your expectations because it gets trotted out as a shitty defense for a lot of things. But
right.
I think in this case it's actually kind of cool where you think it's going to be like this smooth talking like human or a Solarian or something, and then it's like, no, it's this big fucking guy.
Well, it's pretty cool because you learn that the Shadow Broker is just sort of, it's like the Gray Fox in Elder Scrolls. Like it gets passed down to different people, and this guy has only been the Shadow Broker so long, and in essence it passes to Liara, who she takes control of the whole network, and it's a very substantial DLC. I should have just brought it up like all the other characters. I do love Legion. He has such an interesting perspective on everything. He's the Geth character. You get him like pretty late in the game, and it's weird because I believe if you hack him into like the earlier parts of the game, he has unique dialogue, so I don't know why they recorded that. But yeah, he's cool. You can bring him along. There's actually the Overlord DLC too. I like that one a lot.
Cool.
It's very like character centric.
I like the combat music in that one particularly. There's a really banging track at one point in that.
They really get it going. No, I think we covered most of the bases with the characters.
I think so.
I wanted to bring up they keep adding sort of more celebrity voice actors. I think in this one you had Martin Sheen, most notably, as the Elusive Man. I mean,
I thought it was the guy from Fateful Findings.
That was so funny.
Oh my god, yeah.
He
Dude, it sounds just like him. He's just like, Shepard, are you not working on your next book? I was like, no way, it's that guy. And then, no way.
I thought you were kidding when you asked me
No,
that.
I was totally serious.
Yeah, it's he's wonderful. I think he's perfect in this.
He's a great, like, I mean he's a villain, but he's like your boss in this, so it's like,
yeah, you have kind of a very catty relationship with him. You can choose how to play it. Carrie-Anne Moss of the Matrix fame is Arya, the head of Omega. She's a very kind of very dommy person,
right?
Like just very, very in charge, very kind of an asshole, and you have to kind of like, you just kind of have to meet her on her level, which I appreciated. Like Shepard, like if you act tough with her, she'll respect you, which is very interesting.
Well, if you back it up too, like I think, like, can't you beat up one of her bodyguards, or like not beat up, and it's like you insult and like humiliate one of her bodyguards, and she's like, that's funny, or something. I don't know.
Yeah, it's cute. I've seen it all. It's an interesting character because I appreciate that not everybody wants to kiss your ass, especially in this one.
Yeah.
I do appreciate that you get a lot of your old crew back, like Joker and Dr. Chocolates, and
Dr. Chocolate. We didn't talk about her at all. She's like one of the kind of like undersung like secondary NPCs because she's just she's a rock, you know, like you can just go to her and she just has like kind words and fun stories, and it's like, yeah, okay.
And her side quest is like really funny. Where you have to get like the bottle of champagne, and then you just get smashed with her. Yeah. Which I found it just really like weird how that's in the beginning of the game, but like whatever. And there's like a 30-second sequence where you walk around drunk, like it takes a couple of seconds, and the screen shakes.
Like once the cutscene's over,
bathroom.
You're like,
yeah.
Like that one where you get drugged when you get order a drink at like an anti-human bar.
Oh my god!
It's just like wake up like throwing up.
Yeah,
that was awesome. Yeah, Edie, voiced by Trisha Helfer, who we also discussed in the ODST episode. She's great in this game. Great in this game. That's about all I can say. She's an AI on the ship. You have a great section where you play as Joker. As the collectors are boarding you, and she kind of directs you, and because he kind of mistrusts her at first, and then they learn to trust each other, become a team. nice little, I mean, it's just like all these different little side stories happening that make the whole world feel so believable.
And yeah, and she's another example of expanding on the lore of the universe, because AI is outlawed since the Geth. And
That's
so
right.
The fact that Cerberus has a fully functioning AI, and she tries to pass herself off as a VI, which is like a dumb AI.
Yeah, like the little holograms you see on the Citadel and stuff.
Yeah,
but she
tries to pass herself off, but I think there's actually like a check you can do or something where you're like, I know you're an AI or whatever.
Yeah, you can bypass her little like speech paths or whatever. But she's a welcome addition to the cast. I never even because Nick, I know you're going to appreciate this. Admiral Hackett is still you're in touch with him from time to time in the Alliance. He's voiced by Lance Henriksen.
Hell yeah.
Famously from the Aliens. I just love hearing his voice.
He has such a good voice for like an authority figure or something.
Yeah, pretty perfect. Even though I don't think you even physically see him until 3. But he gives you the Arrival DLC, and that one is amazing. That one has some really cool visuals, because depending on when you play it can you either it's sort of like there's the Reapers are going to arrive through a particular relay, and you have to blow it up. You wind up having a talk with either the Collector General or Harbinger, who we haven't talked about, who is the successor to Sovereign, and that he is the Reaper pulling the strings this whole time. And you hear his voice when he possesses one of the enemies on the battlefield. And it's really funny because he only has like a couple lines.
Right.
But it's assuming direct control. I think he cuts a pretty imposing figure. Even though his voice isn't as like gnarly as Sovereign's. I do appreciate it because you hear it so much, it becomes a meme.
Yeah. It is kind of a neat reveal when you find out, like, you think it's the Collector General doing this, but then at the very end, when the whole thing's blowing up, the Collector General becomes unpossessed, and you realize that it was Harbinger
he's been a pawn the entire time as well.
That was pretty cool.
Pretty neat. The combat in general was a huge focus for them, clearly at the expense of like all else, because it's very, very fine-tuned. It feels a lot tighter than it did in 1. We touched on this a little bit last time, but they replace the always firing guns of all kinds with the thermal clips, which is to the chagrin of everybody in this chat, I think.
Yeah.
I don't dislike. I mean, I like the satisfying clip ejecting, but it doesn't feel great to have limitless ammo in the previous game and have a very kind of iffy amount across the missions.
I just feel like the gameplay and the shooting in this game, it's kind of like you what's the word for this? I feel like you just kind of took a step forward and a step back, where it's just different. Where I like in the first game how we should mention the first game is very RPG heavy, where like you have stats that affect how well you shoot, and there's a lot of accuracy and damage numbers, and you have armor and weapons, and there are so many collect this and collect that. There's a lot of stuff.
Right.
And in this game, it's very streamlined. And I don't like this more standard counted ammunition in the guns. I think, Nick, you brought this up last time, where the guns in Mass Effect 1 feel very in-universe, where and it also relates really nicely back into the stats of the items. Like, hey, if you want to shoot off a sniper rifle once and it overheats, you can. And things like that.
But it deals a ton of damage.
Right. And I like that better. What I think is interesting about this game is they did like armor and shields a little bit better, where like certain guns and certain powers affect
ammo types.
Right. Affect certain defenses better, which I feel like they layered on that level of strategy. I just wish, maybe I'm asking for too much, I just wish I had both.
That makes sense, because to add all of that damage and to add all of this stat crunching of like which ammo is good against which thing, but then to remove the complexity from the weapons and then just add it to the
powers and stuff,
the combat gameplay and like the rock paper scissors of the combat is kind of like, why would you simplify it so
6
much?
of one, half dozen of another?
Yeah, sure. I guess. Yeah, and it's
I do think that the abilities in general are a lot more fun to use in this game. Like the tech powers and the biotics, they all have a lot more punch, and it feels like, you know, the cooldowns feel fair, and it's
I think Nick disagrees.
I agree that the powers feel better in terms of their usage and their impact and their presentation.
Yeah.
But this game has universal cooldown. You use one power, you can't use any others.
That's right.
Oh, yeah.
And it's bad.
Yeah, I agree.
Because if you're playing a power-centric character, obviously you can, you know, you still have a litany of weapons that you can use, because every class, you know, doesn't have just proficiency with pistols like in the first one, unless you're like a soldier or whatever. But it still feels very limiting, where it's like, I want to have fun with these abilities that I'm maxing out. And yeah, you can strategize it so that your cooldown is very short, but I like the idea of being able to very quickly strategize with the power wheel and just, like, you know, have my teammates do this and that, and then I shoot this and then I detonate it with this, and just, you know, you feel like a fucking powerhouse.
But can you not in this game like launch a singularity and then blow it up with a push or whatever?
You can, but it's more of a squad thing. Like you have like Liara shoot a singularity and then you hit it with a throw or something.
Sure.
But I don't know. It's ultimately, the game is balanced around it, so it's not a huge deal. But it's a very much a personal preference thing for me. I like being able to just, like, you know, whip whatever I want consecutively, and I think from an in-universe perspective it doesn't make a lot of sense either, especially if you have both tech and biotic abilities. It's like, if you want to put all the biotics on a cooldown because that's a physical body thing, fine, but that shouldn't separate out, or you should be able to separate out the tech powers, because that is entirely a gear-based thing. You know what I mean? I
agree. Like, that universal cooldown bothers me more. Like, the more that you talk about it, the more that not that you're irritating me, but the gameplay element irritates me. Where it's just like, you know, why am I taking on these various powers and these various abilities if they all cool down at the same time?
Well, or that's, like, actually Shepard's actually is much faster than the other characters.
Right.
Yes.
So that is not completely abominable.
Like I said, it's not unbalanced, I guess, but it's just not as fun for me.
I want to say I read that in the new one, that in the legendary package that's coming out soon, that they adjusted that.
Did they?
I want to say that they did.
Because last time I played through it, I got a mod that made them individual again, and I was like,
nice.
Well, there you go. Best of both worlds.
Yeah.
I mean, I generally enjoy the combat a lot in this game. I want to say maybe a little more than 3, much more than 1.
I actually like 3's better. We'll get into that with 3, but sure. I think 3 brings back just enough of the RPG elements and also adds in enough interesting gear stuff and, like, modification stuff that I think it's a little more.
Yeah, fun. They kind of just how you say, you know, like with the scientist, the mad scientist pushing the back and forth, just trying to get it exactly right, because they do. I mean, I don't know, because I still enjoy the upgrades that you can do in this game. I feel like you still get a sense of progression when your ship is you know, you get the upgraded armor or whatever that helps you in the end game. And I guess it's a good a time as any to kind of transition into that, where it's all leading to, because you have to get to the collector base through a series of, there is a very small amount of main missions. Like you said, it's all about the characters. I think Horizon is the first one where you meet.
I'm only laughing because, like, when I was playing Horizon, this is bad. The only thing I could think of is the Bee movie. But, like, but it's like the bees, and then, like, Nick Cage and all this.
Wicker Man. Not the bee.
Dude,
oh, like, my God.
That's the only thing I can think of.
They just, like, freeze in place.
Dude, I know. There's this, I mean, I know they meant it to be serious, but there's this, like, 2-second cutaway where it's not funny, but
the girl, like, on the ground and watching them, like, crawl over.
Yeah. You can see really that the girl is frozen and she's looking at the bees, like, just with her eyes, and I'm like, it's not funny. Yeah. But I'm like, the bees.
That's the first one. It's pretty funny, but there's a lot of good action in that one.
Yeah.
Because that's your kind of first throwdown with the collectors, and you wind up I actually love the mission where you're on their ship, and it's very lonely at first because they're like playing dead essentially to lure you in. And I love that mission especially, but I feel like it kind of takes the wind out of the following one on the Reaper, because you kind of effectively have the same setup where I think they even remark on it, like, or it's an option in the dialogue wheel where Shepard's like, another dead ship, supposedly. It's like, I'm with you, man. Like, I get it. I wouldn't take the bait again. And that's exactly what happens. But in essence, it all leads up to the collector base. Do you guys have any strong particular feelings about the main story beats as we go into the final act here?
I do like meeting the Vermeer survivor on Horizon.
Yeah.
But so the Vermeer survivor being either Caden or Ashley, depending on who you saved in the first one.
Right. They're very judgmental.
Yeah, they're very judgmental because they find out you're working for Cerberus and they're like, bro, we encountered Cerberus so many times doing horrible things. Like, what are you doing? Yeah. And even Ashley, who, used to kind of be more human supremacist, but she's cool.
Still with the Alliance. And
yeah, she's with, he or she is with the Alliance, and, they're investigating they were there on Horizon for like a separate thing, setting up like the defense system. And then they're like one of the only people they're the only person that survived the culling.
What's interesting too is like if you romanced that person, that you get additional dialogue with them too. Which I didn't know if that was going to carry over and if that was going to affect the plot in any way, but it does. I don't know if you guys remember this, but I mean, I happened to just romance Ashley for the achievement this time around, and then when she showed up on Horizon, she actually talks about your relationship, and I'm like, oh, are they going to bring this up? And what's even more interesting, and we'll go back to Horizon, the main plot. I'm a small deviation here. If you. I shouldn't laugh, but I found it funny. Like when you go back to the ship, is her name Kelly? Like the yeoman?
Kelly Chambers, yeah.
Yeah, she actually asks you like about your relationship because like you can kind of get a romance subplot with her too. Which this is like one of the things I appreciate about these games where they thought about that. Where like if you romance Ashley, she's gonna bring it up, and you can tell the person on the ship. Because Ashley also tells you like, oh, I buried you, blah, blah, blah. It was years ago. And you can say that to Kelly. Like, nah, it was years ago. But then there's a picture of Ashley on your desk. You can go back to the main plot, but I did find that kind of humorous, but keep going.
No, yeah. I mean, it's a short little kind of, it's the first major conflict there. Yeah. I did a good opportunity to bring up. I like dicking around on the new Normandy. With Kelly Chambers and everything, and you have your own quarters, and it's you can choose this ridiculous biker outfit. You guys know what I'm talking about? It's like some very like some suits that make a lot of sense.
Isn't it like a Star Wars? Isn't it like a KOTOR outfit or something?
It looks very out of place, but it's funny. Yeah. And it's I like hanging around with your crewmates and just checking up on everybody.
The layout of the ship is very cool. It makes you feel like you're actually on like a military starship, and like
it's easier to navigate to than in the first game. I like it a little better.
Yeah. There's different floors and stuff like that, and no, it's cool too that like you in essence explore it a completely different way when you have to take control of Joker. When your ship gets boarded, I really like that segment. It's you feel because he's like limping along with his brittle bone disease, and you kind of have to play the game completely differently for a couple seconds, and it's cool because it's you genuinely like the controls feel like very weird and cumbersome because you're playing as a a man with this disease, and I like that part a lot. I think it's a very strong, even though it kind of interrupts the Shepard experience a little bit.
What am I supposed to do? Break my arm at them?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was awesome. No, the collector ship I love. I think the Reaper is very creepy. I just think it's a little soon after the collector ship where you go there, and it's you get a lot of like very Event Horizon kind of lines, like even a dead god can dream.
Yeah.
All right. We're getting into uncharted territory here. Like Silent Hill
Legion
shit.
There though, and Legion is just incredible.
Yeah, Legion is awesome. He's a Geth who admires you. I think you were the one who shot him, right? On Eden Prime. That's so cool. Yeah. And he's he can't explain why, but he's soldering like your old armor pieces onto him to fix like the holes. And it's so cool because it's like the evolution of the AI you're seeing in real time. And it pays off, well, obviously a little bit more in 3.
His interaction with Tally though in like the AI core.
Yes, because they hate each other.
And then when Tally finds out that he's trying to access information about the flotilla, and she's like gonna shoot him. And it's like, okay,
right.
I love that because
tough.
it's so it's hard to get them both on that. You have to have like I think you have to have Paragon or Renegade, one of them like really high, to get the middle option where you basically tell him like, here, give her, or no, you're like, hey, can you give him some like non-classified like safe stuff just so he can, you know, satisfy his curiosity or whatever.
Yeah, it's just incredible writing. And I guess to just kind of cap off the whole thing, let's get into the suicide mission, which the whole thing has been leading up to. Incredible score for this part. I really love it. It's the same guy as the first game, Jack Wall, who I neglected to mention actually worked on some of the Myst games. He did a fantastic job on those too.
Oh wow.
Yeah, he's great. He's only in the first 2 games. And it's a really intense, they really build it up well, I think. And it's you get to see kind of how well you did in preparing for this whole thing. And I think it's great. I think in general, up until the very end, it's great. So when you get there, you know, you find everybody you've been looking for, you can rescue them if you get there in time, because there's a certain amount of missions you can do before you know, your crew can effectively die if you leave it long enough. So I think you save them and a few other people, I believe, or maybe just them.
It's the Horizon colonists. I think you get some of them. The only person who survives if you don't go in time, I believe, is Dr. Chakwas. Everybody else dies.
Dr. Chocolates herself.
And you watch Kelly actually get like liquefied and
liquidated. I have to liquidate her assets.
No.
It's really cool though, because it feels like a very climactic part where you have to go through the Jerry Seinfeld B movie again with the bubble shield. A great part. A lot you can wind up experiencing some heartbreaking deaths if you didn't play your cards right. I guess it's just like people who are lazy or didn't like the characters.
Well, you can make incorrect choices too.
Yeah, send the wrong people.
To tell a really quick story, the Giant Bomb has had a series called Mass Alex, where Alex Navarro, one of the staff members, played through Mass Effect for the first time with one of the other guys that did play it before. And at the end of Mass Effect 2, he chose incorrectly for the fire team leader. He chose Samara, thinking, oh, she has a lot of combat experience. But it says in the briefing thing that she's a loner. She's not good at leading people because she fights by herself. So because of that, Tally, who was his tech expert, died. And they had this whole controversial vote where they were like, do we go back and fix the save so Tally's alive when we play 3? And they ended up doing it. Because they were like, the argument being that they're only going to play it once and they'd rather have Tally there than not, because they're not going to do it again. So
I think my only problem with the suicide mission, it's way too easy to get 100% everybody survives.
Yeah,
it's way too easy. Like, if you just like do all the loyalty missions, and dude, Kelly's like, this person wants to talk to you. This person wants to talk to you. Remember, this person really wants to talk to you. Like, dude, unless like you just don't like playing the game, like it's so easy.
That's the case for a lot of this shit, though. Like, it's the same kind of thing that we talked about with the allocation of resources in the previous game. How only a certain amount of people went renegade. It's the same thing here, where it's like, it's just kind of. I find those less interesting than the, you know, you can let Zaid die in his loyalty mission.
I find this more interesting. Yeah, I agree.
And it is cool though that they attempted it. I think in general, what I'm gonna wind up saying about this series is that it would have made a really good Telltale series.
Oh yeah,
it was like, I think. That might have even been a better venue to tell this story, because they generally it's less concerned with the moment to moment and more in the different types of consequences that you can kind of pursue. And it's kind of like the promise of this game, I think, in general. I don't know.
Greg.
You had that big smile on your face when I said right up until the end, because what they wind up revealing is the reason that people have been kidnapped is a human reaper, and they've been liquefying people to create a human. It's like a giant like humanoid skeleton, full of humans, and I don't get it. I don't get it.
I don't understand.
Do you know why like they did this?
Are they going to drop it onto a planet? Because is it a ship? Like what is? But
does it fly through space like Superman? I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know.
I don't know.
It's a weird choice.
You shoot it in the eyeballs.
I don't agree with it.
That's it.
Yeah. It's just the final boss. It inevitably. You get the final kind of choice with the elusive man. Do you want to destroy the base or not? And it ultimately means nothing, but that's the main kind of, you can kind of part on good terms with the elusive man or not. I didn't even mention, because I was thinking about how that correlates to the ending of Mass Effect 1 and how the principal choice there was like to who to choose as the counselor, and you can run into Anderson and Udina very briefly, but it's kind of the same either way, where Anderson is just kind of there and burnt out. It's just matters who has the job,
right?
They're not really principal characters in this game at all, but it's nice to see them at least. There's a couple of those, and that is kind of it. And it's just so, I think, such a poor choice. I was going to bring up that this is actually Drew Karpyshyn, who is the lead writer of the previous game. He shares a credit as lead writer with Mac Walters, who in this game he's the co-writer. The next game he is the sole lead writer, and in Mass Effect Andromeda he's the project lead. So I don't want to point fingers here, but I think we can trace certain trends back to one specific person. And it's not like I'm not going to say it's bad. I just inherently disagree with a lot of the storytelling choices.
Sure.
I mean, also we will get into this with Mass Effect 3 and Andromeda. There were some issues with, blah, 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 games being rushed, budget. I'm sure all of that comes into play. We can't, point fingers at one guy, but we'll get there.
Yeah.
Greg, I want to ask you one question very quick pertaining
to
the suicide mission being too easy. Leaving the suicide mission exactly as it is, would you be okay with it if there were more opportunities for the companions to die over the course of the game before that?
That's so interesting. I think the reason why I think that the suicide mission is not very good is it felt like to me, hey, did you complete all the side quests we pretty much made you do and really, really wanted you to do? If you did, check mark.
Sure.
When they called it the suicide mission, I said, I thought I'm going to get an Ashley Caden thing where I'm going to have to like pick one or the other through like several times.
Sure.
And that's not really what it is. It's more of like a, did you do the stuff we asked you to do?
Yeah.
I think that's what I disagreed with. That's an interesting question that you asked me. I think my answer to you is no. I just thought I was going to get that choice in that mission. I thought they were going to do an Ashley Caden thing within it, or maybe at a grander scale. But that's just not really how they played it.
I don't disagree with you. I just think for an EA RPG, I think my expectations were managed a little bit better.
Sure, I understand.
Because this is kind of where, it's like a lot of franchises, they kind of intermingle with. It starts to make some compromises. It starts to just kind of feel a little bit less like itself. The same thing kind of happens with Dead Space. As it goes on. I'm not going to blame them either necessarily. It's just on a, like I mentioned at the beginning, it's just like you take a couple steps forward, you take a couple steps back. It's one of those experiences, I think, in general. But in terms of like, I do really like this game. I think it's very like comfy to play. I think that I'm getting into my final thoughts here. I just think it's very smooth. I like how kind of casual the pace is. I enjoy the checklist in some ways because I think the missions are very satisfying. The combat is very satisfying to me. I just think that the main plot is kind of bad. I think what would have worked a little bit better, because it's a kind of bizarre thing where they seem to suggest in the first game that the only way the Reapers can get in is through that back door in the Citadel. Like they're trapped in dark space, and it just kind of, what you do here and in Arrival kind of just forestalls them by like a couple months. And it's hard to feel like this game has that kind of impact if it's like, I get, I guess to an extent they get a couple more months to prepare, but what you learn is that a lot of them don't, and they're kind of just taken completely off guard in the third game. So it's tough to like, it's just one of those things where I think this game should have had like a downer ending. You know what I mean? Like I know that doesn't really, I think it's just a cross purposes thing with the suicide mission, but I think ultimately, I feel like they should have just like ended with the Reapers getting in this one. Like, you know what I mean? Like one of those kind of endings. I think that would have served the overall story better, because as it is, it feels kind of like you're just spending a little bit more time in this universe. And I don't dislike that. I just think they could have utilized their time better.
Yeah, I understand. I think I'm with you, man, 100%. I definitely lean towards the first one a little more than this one, even though they both have problems. I'll give you my final thoughts here. This game kind of aligns with, I don't know if I've made this joke yet, where like I feel like every BioWare series is the same, where like the first one is really interesting but really derpy, the second one plays better but is a little stupider, and the third one is like a compromise that isn't good, right?
Interesting. Very interesting.
It's with this game, it's like it plays better, it's tight, but like I wasn't huge on how they developed this plot, where I feel like a lot of the main, I think I'm in the minority here, but a lot of the main missions feel like side missions of where you're just kind of getting to know your squad. And I know getting to know the characters was kind of the thing of this game. It didn't quite work for me. And like some of the moment-to-moment gameplay doesn't quite jive with me because it's less of an RPG. I find myself like less enticed to click stuff. We're like, oh, I don't really care about collecting codexes because I don't get the plus 26 EXP mark or whatever it is.
Right.
And I don't, when you hack stuff or bypass stuff, like you don't really...
I didn't mention that there's no planet exploration in this game, and they sort of kind of replace it with planet scanning, which
I was
going to
get there. Yeah, and I was just like, I kind of just found myself going to new systems and going for 100% scanning just to get numbers. And it's just, I didn't really like replaying it, to be honest. It wasn't my favorite thing. I don't dislike it. I just kind of felt myself checking the boxes a little bit when I was playing this game. And that's really kind of my final thought, where I don't like the back from the death sort of thing, even though I understand how it makes Cerberus and your relationship. I get it. And I don't really like the B-movie thing. It's kind of funny. But it's all right. By B-movie, I mean BEE.
Yeah, I wasn't sure what you were talking about there for a second.
And I don't love it. I'm going to kick it to Nick just because my feelings on it are kind of like,
like mixed.
It's all right. Go ahead, dude. That's kind of all I have.
I'm gonna ask you a question about my final thoughts. Can I use this to discuss something we didn't bring up yet, or do you want me to? Okay, really quick. I'll talk about this more in Mass Effect 3, but I want to talk about the Paragon and Renegade system really quick because they changed some stuff in this. Primarily, they added interrupts, which are cutscene actions you can do, whether Paragon or Renegade, depending on your level.
It was actually intended for the first game, but they only implemented it in this.
So you can either do like violent, aggressive, and kind of funny things in with the Renegade ones, and you can do diplomatic, like diffusing and kind of like nice things as the Paragon. For example, you can push a guy out a window. As a Renegade, you can headbutt a Krogan as a Renegade, which is really funny, and you should do it no matter what your character is.
Right.
It's great. And that's that. I just wanted to briefly talk about how this game sort of furthered my distaste for morality systems in general, because Paragon and Renegade is an example of gaming's tendency to have centralized abstract morality systems where it's never clear by what morality you're being judged by, so you have to assume it's the developers imposing theirs on you, because like in the context that you're operating in, it's like who is saying that what I'm doing is good or bad? because like the guy that I pushed out a window was a bloodthirsty mercenary here to murder somebody. So it's like, is it really bad that I pushed him out a window before he could warn his friends that I was here? Like, is that really
I don't know.
bad?
It does seem to change game to game, because like I mentioned, the first game, Renegade is more sort of just kind of cold-hearted, logical. This game, it's like badass stuff.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, why would you not do most of the Renegade stuff? Because it's just
a lot of fun.
It is utility. It is, yeah. It's really fun. But like, I'll be done in a second. I'll give you my actual final thoughts in 1 second. But like, we mentioned The Witcher last time, and The Witcher is a pseudo-organic system. And I say pseudo because like a game can't really be organic unless you have randomized gameplay systems. But The Witcher is pseudo-organic in that you don't know the results of your choices. You just make them, and then you find out later. And they're not necessarily judged by a central authority. It's more just, you did this happened, or something like Fallout New Vegas, where it's like, you did this, there's a faction that liked that you did that, and there's a faction that disliked that you did that. You're not being judged by some nebulous central authority. Mm-hmm. You are being judged by the world. And I would much rather have the world react to what I'm doing and not some meter. And so I think that works with the Force in Star Wars, because it is like a quantifiable thing in the universe. But anyway, we could talk more about this later. I just wanted to bring that up because I think
your face also. Did you mention that I don't remember your face changes if you're you
get like your implants start to glow if you become more renegade and stuff.
But they don't really like. I don't think people comment on it, right? Like it's not like an Oblivion thing or.
No, they don't.
So that would have been welcome too if people were like, yeah, you're looking a little worse for wear there.
Yeah. I have another morality system.
You can buy it, I think, too. You can buy like a new face.
Yeah,
like,
you can. Point. There's a med bay upgrade for like 5,000 credits, I think, or something, and you just look fine, and it won't do it anymore. But I have another morality rant we could do for like 3, I guess. But my actual final thoughts on this game is that I don't like it as much as 1, but I think the character work is superior in a lot of ways, and I really, really love the expansion of the lore and the universe here. And like you said, it's a game where you just kind of spend a lot of time here without actually really doing a lot of substance. Ultimately, I mean, depending on how much you like the main quest, but the combat, I think, in a lot of ways is an improvement on the surface. But if you really think about it in terms of like fulfillment and complexity, I think it's actually a step back in a lot of ways. Unless you just like boilerplate, okay, third-person shooters with like powers, but
Gears of War imitator.
And that's fine for what this is, because it's a vessel through which you have action that tells a story. That's okay. This game isn't trying to be an action game, but it is. You know what I mean? It's an RPG that's trying to be an action game, and it kind of.
Yeah, I do think it's a good pin to put on it. Is that it feels like a little bit of an identity crisis at times.
Yeah,
but.
That's basically my thought on it. I like Mass Effect 1 better.
Yeah,
but
Beppy, is that gonna do it? Do you want to send us off here?
No, I think that's it's. I think I mean this is a very critically acclaimed, beloved game. I like it a lot. Hard to say. Ask me any other day if I like it more than 1 overall. But in general, I think it's fair to say that we're in agreement that there is some degree of watering down that will, it's going to be weird when we talk about Mass Effect 3, but that's what we're doing next week, so I hope you'll join us then.
Oh, the heavy weapons are cool. The heavy weapons are really cool. I like those. Okay.
Oh, in this game? Yeah. All right. There we go. That's it, folks.
Yeah, man, that's going to do it. So we'll see you guys next week for Mass Effect 3. Thank you, guys.